It's Mike Franklin, the property tax guy, and it's small claims assessment review season. And I had a case down in Broome County, town of Vestal, with the assessor Mark Minoia and their attorney Dan Reynolds. It was quite an interesting case. I heard more bullshit from those two people. I haven't heard that much bullshit since the watching the presidential debates. These two are unbelievable. The town attorney is just spewing all this bravado, and he didn't even know what the assessment was. The assessor is just well, anyway, we'll get into it. But it was just astounding how disingenuous these people are. It's mind-boggling. There's severe customer service issues in the assessment department in the town of Vestal, and I think the town needs to do something about it. They need to get rid of this guy. I think technically he knows the business, but sometimes when somebody's been around so long, they take advantage of the system for their own purposes. And the objective of this is how he can get paid and do as little work as possible. And I'll explain what his methodology is. He has about 9,300 properties to do, and that's because they collect taxes from 9,300 people. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 they get from people, and this assessor can't give them the time of day. Is my experience. His job is, when taxpayers have a concern, his job is to look into, get back to them promptly, look into it in good faith, and either make an adjustment or politely point them to their appeal options. And what he does is he applies, the state establishes a market increase for the town, as a percentage. And so he just applies that percentage to all properties and calls it a day. That's his idea of valuation. He hasn't done a revaluation in a long time, and it's a legal approach. It's a uniform increase across the board, but when you do it year over year over year, it just compounds errors. So some of them will be high, some of them will be low. It creates a circumstance of likelihoods for unequal assessments. That means that the properties that there can be as good or better that are assessed for less than yours, or vice versa. And the people who are assessed for less, of course, they don't say anything. The people who are paying more can become quite upset, and rightly so, because they literally have a constitutional right to fairness in this process, and there doesn't appear to be any. And so we had this hearing, and basically the assessor he spends the whole time. He's always right. He's never wrong. Not even to the penny. He is always right, even though it's an arbitrary calculation. And so he defends it tooth and dagger. The town wastes the taxpayers' money having an attorney who doesn't even know what the assessed value is at the hearing. Small claims assessment review hearings are supposed to be informal hearings where you don't need a lawyer. Well, we have a lawyer for a hearing officer, and we got a lawyer for the town, and so it's just kind of ridiculous. And he was just, when it was my turn to speak, he kept interrupting me, saying, all these things, rules of evidence and whatnot. There are no rules of evidence, you idiot. And we'll see what the hearing officer does with it, but I'm going to show you some of what the assessor is spewing. Here he provided his excellence and equity from the New York State Office of Real Property Services, signed by Catherine Garbutt. Well, this is a submission that he provided for the proceeding, and it's not certified in any way. He could have done it up in Microsoft Word for all we know. But I would say she probably signed that. But the thing is, I would like to question Catherine Garbutt. I'd like to ask her, is a 210 single-family residence comparable for a 242 rural residential property? Because this assessor seems to think so. is a property in normal condition a comparable for one in good condition? Is a property that is in excellent condition a comparable to one in normal condition? I would say no, but the assessor thing seems that that's what he uses as comparables, and I would be curious to see what Catherine Gerbut has to say about that. And I'd like her to demonstrate how she came to her conclusion that this role is excellent. I'd really like to hear how she came to that determination. Be hilarious. So this is the subject property, built in 1986, 5,500 square feet. It's a pretty big house. There's a lot of big houses in the Southern Hills, as we will see when I get into it. But this is the subject property. It's got a large parcel. I think it's 33 acres. You can see it here. So what we have here is the assessor's comparable sales analysis. Let's go through that. This is hilarious. So on the very left is the subject property. When I told the hearing officer that the way this system works is the first one is the most comparable, and it goes progressively less. And the town attorney had an issue with that. It's like, dude, wait your turn, take notes, and bring it up when it's your turn. But he interrupts my presentation, and I think that's pretty inappropriate. And plus, he doesn't even have a clue about how this report works. He didn't even know what the assessment was. So anyway, the subject property, built in 1986, normal condition, average grade. You have to assume that he's correct. The assessor's presumed to be correct. The 2 fireplaces, 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 5,115 square feet, and a 1,040 square foot garage. And he has a market cost of $768, which is kind of weird because on their cost analysis report, he has a cost of $948. Which one is it, Mr. Minoia? And I wonder if Mrs. Gerbert, or whatever her name is, if she could explain that to me. This says $768, the other one says $9. Which is it? He comes up to with a comparable estimate here of $872,300 in the lower left corner. And, well, where'd the figure come from? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. The hearing officer is supposed to treat this report as if it's gospel, but there's no way of knowing how this is calculated. And the assessor doesn't explain it. He just says, oh, it's the truth. So let's look at the first comp. 55 acres. Oh, yeah, the subject is 30.91. This one has 55.26, but it was built in 2017. Subject property was built in 1986. It's 31 years newer. Is that really comparable? Also, it says it's in normal condition. Is a house that new really in normal condition? I doubt it. I would say it's probably good condition. So he's got that wrong. What else we got here? So it says it sold for $530,000 in July of 2021. So that means that price would go impact for the 2022 assessment. So the assessment should have been, if they're at 100% equalization, which they say they are, the assessment in 2022 should have been $530, and then there should have been market increases for 23, 24, 25. So that would bring it up to probably $650 or so, but he's got it adjusted for $772, and he's got a market cost of $525. So. Is that $525 kind of like the $768 and the $935, or where does he get that figure? So, but it's 31 years newer. I don't think it's comparable. Okay, second comparable. What do we have here? This looks like a pretty substantial. It was built in 2009, so it's 23 years newer. It's an excellent grade. And excellent means it's a mansion. It's an estate, and it's in good condition. Subject property is in normal condition. This is 2 grades above, and so it's not. This is not comparable either. He says it sold for $775 in 2021. It's this monster property, and he says, well, actually, it's not that big of square footage, but it does have 4365, and I don't see a garage or anything, and but it's not comparable as far as condition and grade. Let's look at the third one. Third one is in good condition, so it doesn't match condition. Built in 2006, so it's 20 years newer, and it's sold for $640,000 in 2022, so that'd be 2023. So a market for 2024, 2025, probably bring it up to 750 or so. But he's got it at 946. You know, where does the figure come from? Okay, here's another one. Built in 1991. That's a little closer. Normal average condition. That is comparable. Let's see. It's smaller. It's got a big. Okay, no, it's small. It sold for $580,000. 2021. So add the market increase. Oh, and by the way, I looked up the assessments on all these things, and they're all considerably lower than sales price. But I'll show you that as we go. So this sold for $580,000, and here's the last one. So this one's roughly comparable. And here's the last one. It sold for $230,000. Now, how can a house that sells for $230,000 be comparable to a house that's $830,000? So they have 4 comparables that are not comparable, and one that's loosely comparable. And that's all he has there. So so here's his comparables. Sold for $950,000 in 2023. I checked the assessment for this year. It's $761,000. So $761,000 is what? It's about 25%. So it's assessed at 25%. I'm sorry, of 75% of fair market value, and I'm suggesting my client's property is assessed at 100% of fair market value. He's supposed to be if he's at 100% equalization, he's supposed to be bringing all these properties up here. The assessment. So this sale date is 2023. So that sale, when you're at 100%, is basically gospel for 2024. So you should have this year's market increase. So the assessment on this property should be about $1 million, but it's $761,000. So that's unequal, which is the entirety of my argument. Although I have an argument that my client's property in 1986 is the oldest of these large properties that you're going to see, and what I'm suggesting is that the older properties sell for less and the newer properties sell for more. And I think that the pattern is established. But anyway, on this one, it's clear that this property is underassessed by 25%, and my client's assessed at 100%, and so my client's paying this guy's taxes. It's not right. Okay, this one sold $850,000 on 8/24. So that $850,000 should be the current assessment. It's assessed for $811,400. It's not that far off, but we would take an adjustment of that nature. Let's see. So that's what, $39,000. I mean, we'd want more than that, but we'd take it. Okay, this one sold for $895,000 in 2023. So that means that sale would be gospel for 2024. So you got to market. So this assessment should be about $950,000. And it's assessed for $770,000. So that's about 20%. I think a mistake I made is I should have, I put this information in red. By the way, these are 210 single family properties that the assessor are using. My client's property is a 242. So these aren't even comparable. They're not in this. Oh, this one is. This is a 242. Okay. So this one is comparable, but it should be assessed at over $1 million, and it's 25% underassessed. This one is a 210 single family. Oh, and by the way, This one was built in 1994. It's about the same age. So this is a good comparable. So so as an unequal, we would be due a 25% adjustment from 813. So we'll take that one. This one is a 210 single family. It's 14 years newer, and like I said, 39,000. We take that as a base. This one is also a 210, built in 15 years newer, and it should be assessed for about $950, but it's assessed for $770. So we're due a 20% adjustment there. Here's a 242. This is the proper property class. It's got some acreage to it. Sold for $398. It's assessed for $510. 2021. So that'd be 2022, 23, 24, 25. So it'd be due increases for so that should be about 500. So he got this one right. However, it's in 2019. It was built in 2019, so it's 14, 19, 20, 33 years newer. So it's not comparable in that regard. Okay, this one is about the same age, but it's a 210 single family. Sale price is $650 in 2021, so that'd be at 2022 would be $650, 3,425. So the assessment should be about $750 on this. So it's actually a little high, but it's a 210, which is not comparable. Okay, this one is sold for $710. It's assessed at $797. So for 2025, so the assessment should be $710. This guy's overassessed. It's an improper class. It's about the same age. Look at that. It's the same property, but different data. Isn't that something? 797. 210, 292. Oh, okay, no, it's the same property. No, sale price $650, and this is sale price $710. Okay, 2021. Okay, so this is the more recent one. So $710 should be the assessment, but he based it on the 2021, and he kept doing market increases. So that just demonstrated he was wrong on that one. But it's a 210, so it's not even comparable. All right. And so this one sold for $1.55 million in 2023. So for 2024, it'd be 1.55. So you do a market increase. So the assessment on this should be about 1.65. Assessed for 1.2. So there's 25%. It's a 210, so it's not comparable, and it's 31 years newer. This is the assessor's data. I didn't cherry pick this stuff. These are his choices. This one is a 210. It's not comparable. Sold for $1 million 2023. So 2024, which should have been 1.1. 2025, and the market increase should be about 1.2 million, and it's assessed for $885. It's unequal. Okay, so here's what's going to happen, and he goes on, and then when I confronted him with all this stuff, it goes on. He provided 20 of these. And he provides this table, and then when I confronted with him, he goes, "Well, that's not really the relevant part of our argument. It's and so what's going to happen? What's the hearing officer going to do? He's going to decide whether or not I met the burden of proof, and it's like I think I steamrolled the burden of proof. I demonstrate that the assessor did no comparable analysis. He's showing you all these reports and everything, but that's not what he used. And here's another hilarious thing I got to show you. This is great. Oh my God, this guy is something else. So in other words, he spent 2 seconds applying the market increase, and then he spends all this time trying to cover for that fact. But look at the date at the bottom right of this report, 9/16/25 generated. That's when the report was generated. Well, this valuation was supposed to be as of March 1st, 2025, but look at the left hand side. where it says second story, about 2/3 the way down. Let's see, where is it? Bear with me a second. I'm trying to find it. It says 2026 assessment. Trying to find it. Okay, roll year. Yeah, top right, it says roll year 2026. He ran the report on the wrong year. Residential properties are valued on comparable sales. This is the assessor's comparable sales analysis. And he analyzed it on the wrong year. And I pointed that out. And so basically the assessor has no argument at all. And what he did provide, supported my position, not his. And so the question is, the hearing officer has to establish if I overcame the burden of proof. I believe I steamrolled the burden of proof. And then he'll want to know if I established a fair market value. He asked me specifically about that. And I said, I believe what he established as fair market value, he's presumed to be correct, should be adjusted for the fact that it's older than all of these properties. So there should be some sort of adjustment for that. But and also there should be adjustment for the fact that he's using properties in superior grade and superior condition to that but let's just use the 831 as fair market value, and I would like to adjust it for the unequal, and I've demonstrated unequal to be as much as 25%, and so I didn't establish an exact figure, but we're asking for a reasonable adjustment, and I think that that's sufficient. The job of the hearing officer is to do what's equitable. And I think I've clearly established that my client is overassessed relative to the assessor's, and that the assessor did no valuation. So, and then their lawyers just spouting off about all this stuff, and he doesn't even know what the assessment was. He was using the wrong figure. And then the Mark Minoia is a highly disingenuous guy, and he's good at making his job easy, but he's not doing the job that the taxpayers paid him to do. This is a compulsory process. People have rights, and they have a right to a proper appeal, and it's pretty darn inappropriate that the taxpayers have to pay an attorney to abuse them. So the town uses the money that the taxpayers give them to hire an attorney to abuse them. It's pretty darn inappropriate. The town needs to hire an assessor who understands that their job is to respond to taxpayers properly, look into their concerns in good faith, make an adjustment. You don't roll over for people who are trying to get something for nothing. And if there are people of that nature, in their opinion, politely point them to their appeal options, and they can get a second opinion on whether or not that's the case. And that's the way it's supposed to work. But these people evaded two of my FOIL requests. I foiled the comparable sales report, the cost valuation report, the cost valuation report for the assessor's comparable sales, the land tables, subject property inventory summary, and I got none of that, and which is a violation of New York state law. Now they would say that I could have appealed, and I could have, but I have better things to do. And they could say, well, you could have filed an Article 78 in the Supreme Court. I most certainly could have, and I would have clearly won. But the problem with doing that is that by the time the court case gets settled, this hearing is over, and so the court would order them to give me the data, and it would be of no use because the hearing's over. So, however, I'm going to suggest to the supervisor in the town board that this year I didn't have time to document them and follow through and sue them for this. but they might want to dot their I's and cross their T's in the future, because I may have to make an example of them. And also, if I can prove that they purposely evaded FOIL, it's a prosecutable offense. There was a case recently where that was done, and the municipality member who evaded it was under the impression that he would be indemnified by the town for his attorney's fees to defend him in the case. And so the person that was able to get the prosecution executed sued the municipality, and the court concluded that the town can't indemnify someone who's convicted of a crime. And so so he thought, because he was an employee of the municipality, that the municipality would pay his attorney's fees. Well, that turned out not to be the case. So either he got stuck with a bill that he could not afford, or his attorneys got stiffed. So if you're an attorney for Mark Minoia and you're dealing with me in the future, you may want to get your attorney fees up front, would be my recommendation. Because he's not going to get indemnified if he intentionally withholds FOIL data. It's the law. Look it up. This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy.